Because otherwise, if I give you something that you don't know how to do, people are going to complain, I don't know how to do it. You never show me how to do it. I'm doing a test. I'm learning on a test. That's bad, right? We don't want that to happen. All right, we're back. We are COMP123 in the summer 2019 semester at Centennial. And we just finished talking about how to use binary reading and writing. We're week 12, part 2 of our broadcast. That's where we are. And right now what I want to start a brand new solution. So I'm going to close this one off. We finished off talking about reading and writing, binary files, text files. And now what I want to talk about is the other problem. The other problem is I've given you a SQL file that you're going to use for assignment 5. And you need to import this thing or use it in your files. So in order for you to do this, I've given you a link to go to download SQL Server Management Studio. It's a free download. This has been updated fairly recently, if you notice. If I click on this link, you can download this latest version. The last version was July 25th as of this video, 2019, which is like only a few days ago, right? Which is pretty cool, right? So that's like, it's been updated recently. Whenever I see things that are updated recently, I'm like, I feel comfortable that it's going to work. It's going to be good, right? If it's something that hasn't been updated in years, bad. Don't use that one. All right? That's a bad thing to use. And we're going to see one of those on Wednesday. Okay, so now that I've downloaded it, I can activate it. And again, I can go to, if I type in my Windows 10 SQL Server Management Studio, I just type in SQL and go here. And this opens up my SQL Server Management Studio. Now I've already done this step with the other section, right? But I want to do it with you. So it's going to bring up a little window that says connect to server. What you want to put in here is localDB/MS SQL localDB. You're connecting to your local database engine. All right? And then press connect. Now, in a real life scenario, you'd be connecting to something on the web, maybe a Microsoft Azure database. Or maybe it's going to be a real database on the network somewhere. This is not a real database. This is like a little practice baby database that's on your computer, right? That's why it's localDB. In here, under databases, I have already a database called $computers. I'm going to delete it because I want to create one with you. So I'm going to delete it. It's gone. Now, hints. I gave you guys a file, right? If you look at our lessons, here, let's bring up the lessons. So we'll go to lesson 11. I gave you this file, this SQL file, $computers SQL, yeah? That's up on eCentennial. I want to be able to import this stuff. So I want to open this up in your favorite editor. Edit, or in my case, Visual Studio Code. All right? So here I brought it up, and you can see that I can see what the file is about, right? I'm going to scroll down, and you can see at the bottom it says altered database $computers. This means that you must have a database first that's called $computers. Let's make that, and I want to name it exactly this. A couple ways to do that. I'm going to copy this, copy it, and I'm going to go here and right-click on databases, the databases folder here, right-click it, and go new database. And then I'm going to put in the name for that. So it's got to be the exact name, $computers. Guys and girls, I can't specify how important this is for assignment 5. If you don't make your database called $computers and I try and open up your assignment, it's not going to work because our connection strings are going to be so different, right? So please make sure it's called $computers for our assignment. And then I'm going to press OK. Now that I have a database, I can right-click on the database and go New Query. Here's my new query. It's going to bring up this empty T-SQL query document here. I'm going to go back to my editor, Visual Studio Code, and I got all this. I'm going to select all, Control A. And then I'm going to do copy, Control C. You can also do it from here. Control A, I want to select all, Control A. And I can do copy, Control C. Either way, if you're comfortable with the keyboard commands, is fine. Once I've copied it, I can go back to SQL Server Management Studio in my query and press Control V or Edit Paste, whatever you feel comfortable with. Once I've got it in here, this is my query now, all I have to do is press Execute. If I press Execute, bam, it's done. Now I have all my data. Guys, it's a 5-minute process, right? If you follow my steps. It literally is this easy, but you need SQL Server Management Studio. There is no easier way to do this. I've tried exporting it, but unfortunately our Visual Studio 2017 Community Edition doesn't have the same features that the Pro Edition has. So if you look up online and it says go here and do this, it's not going to work. So please do it this way. With SQL Server Management Studio, it's just the easiest way. Okay, cool. Now that I've done this, I just can close this off. I'm so confident that it's going to work. By the way, if you want to check ahead of time to make sure the data here, you can right-click on Dollar Computers. Actually, open up Dollar Computers, go to Tables. You can see that it created a table for you, dbo.products. And if I right-click on Tables and go Select Top 1,000 Rows, you can see now that I have all kinds of data in here. Look, this is all my data. Please do not create your own data file. That would be catastrophic for us, because you're going to have a data file, you format it with your own fields and whatever, and then you give it back to me and it's going to be absolutely useless. I won't be able to look at it because I don't have your data, right? So please do it this way. This is just the easier way. I'm asking you to do it this way. I won't accept it. I'll tell you right now, if you give me some other data file or whatever, say, hey Tom, I made my own SQL file, here it is. No, I'm not going to do that for you, right? And it doesn't make any sense. In the real world, the client's going to give you access to data that's live somewhere, right? And you're probably going to not have access to modify it, change it, or delete it. You're only going to be able to read from it. Chances are, in real life, right? Because in real life, we have no greenfield projects, my friends. Chances are, you're not a database administrator. You're a developer that's tapping into a database. So that's the only access you're going to have. All right, so let's just close this off, right? We're not going to save anything here because it's already been done. And now that I've got this, I can even close off this part. I can go back into Visual Studio. Let's make a new folder. Guys, I want to start assignment 5 with you as a gift right now. Let's do it together. All right? Here's how we're going to do it. By the way, on Wednesday, part of this assignment 5 is going to be due for your lab, right? So because I'm not seeing you on Wednesday morning because I have a bit of a conflict, right? It's going to be due on Friday. And what I'm going to do for you guys from a lab 12 perspective, which is what we're doing, right, is I'm going to get you to do part of your user interface for assignment 5 for your lab. So then this next lab is going to be finish your user interface for assignment 5. Do all your forms and hand it in, just so I know I've seen that you have progress. If you don't handle your forms, that's bad. You should be able to go from one form to the other. It's going to be good planning for you, and I'll give you the details on Wednesday, like to be fair with everybody else. All right? But really, that's what you're doing. So let's start assignment 5 together. So I'm going to go File, New, Project. Right? So File, New Project. And again, I'm using a Windows Forms app, right? And instead of repos, I want to make sure I go into the right place, which is going to be for me on desktop. And I'm going to call this thing COMP123, which I suggest for you, summer 2019. And then it's going to be called Assignment 5, right? And you guys are the C team. Yeah? C. You guys can call it 5. You don't have to call it C. And maybe you want to put your name at the end. Like, you know, if I was going to do it, I'd be like Tom Studiopoulos, 3008185557. You know, whatever it's going to be. Whatever you're, or if you're comfortable doing your student number, but identify yourselves, please. Don't just put assignment 5. I'm going to create a directory for my solution and create a new Git repository just like normal and press OK. Now that I've got this form, I'm going to read my requirements. And some of you didn't do this last time with your assignment. I've seen some people, they've handed in stuff in and it's not quite right. Guys, read your requirements. Look, here's start form and here's select form. We're going to make select form. Okay, I can't do all of it, but I'm going to start you with select form. It says add a label and blah, blah, blah. What I really want to focus on is this part, data grid view. Notice this part says entity framework. Uh-oh, what the heck does this mean? I'm going to show you this Wednesday. All right, so we're going to connect to it to show that there's a connection with the database today, and then I'm going to change it on Wednesday. All right, so look for that video, please. The Wednesday video is important because I'm going to show you how to do entity framework, and it's a slightly different way of connecting. Also, entity framework provides us with that data class, the container class that we need. Remember, we created a student data class for the other model that we did for lesson 11. I made it by hand, right? Entity framework, guys, does it automatically. It looks at the database and says, hey, what fields do I have? Cool, let's make that class, and it makes it for you. Super important for this thing because guess what? We have a ton of fields for this one. It's not just 4 fields like we had for student. It's like 20 fields. right? You don't want to make all those by hand if something can do it for you. So that's what Entity Framework is. We're not going to handle this today, but we're going to do this part, the data grid view. So let's do that. So we're going to just go into my Server Explorer. Sorry, we're going to go into Toolbox, and we're going to grab that data, which is our data grid view, and drag and drop it across. Here it is. And I'm going to give some room because in my requirements it says add a label to the top of the form that lets the user know what kind of form this is. Okay? And I'm going to pull this across. If you really don't know what to make, remember I've definitely given you specifics on your design here. Okay? And if you look down here, I have given you some examples of what the form would look like. Here's some examples, like this. So if you want to, you can make it look like this. You should call this select form. So let's do that. So here I'm going to go into Solution Explorer, and I'm going to rename this form into select form. So rename select form. Excellent. Here's my select form. And here in my properties, right, for the form, it shows that it says select your computer. I think I like that. I'm going to go in here and say select your computer. Select your computer, starting you off the right way. Maybe make my form a little bigger. It doesn't tell you how big to make it, but I have a feeling it's going to be pretty big, right? And maybe make it so it's kind of something like this. Again, I'm just picking an arbitrary size. You have to make sure that it makes sense for you with your design. All right. I want to connect to a data type, right? I want to connect to my data. And remember that I have in my SQL Server Object Explorer now, I have my local DB, and you should see in here under databases $computers. If you don't see this, guys, you've done something wrong, because we just did it in my SQL Server Management Studio, right? For example, maybe you're looking at this one, and this one doesn't have that. All right, this is another database. Don't look at this one. Don't look at this server. Look at this server, local DB, MS SQL local DB, if you have more than one. Okay. But what we want to do is we want to configure this grid view, right? By the way we configure the grid view should be based on what I've told you in the assignment. Let's take a look at the assignment, what it says. It's slightly different. So if I look at my assignment, here's my select form. It says, use the products table as a data source, okay, for the data grid view. We don't have that yet. Add a label in the text box and the event handler. What else does it say here that's interesting? When you drag the data grid view, it must be read-only. The read-only property must be set to true. Okay, let's do that. So my data grid view, I go over here to my read-only property, scroll down, read-only property should be set to true. Let's do that. True. Yay. And then what I want to do is do all those other modifications I did. If I go here into the my smart arrow, take off, enable adding, take off, enable deleting. I shouldn't be able to do those two things, just like we did for our lesson 11. Okay? Also, if you look up here, all these allowable stuff should be set to false. Allow resize, false. Allow user to resize rows, false. Okay, that's important to do. Our data grid view is called data grid view 1. I mean, this is our products data grid view. I didn't tell you to do that, but chances are you should probably call it the products data grid view. Products data grid view. Okay? And then if I scroll down, auto size columns mode, please select that as display cells, and then auto size row mode as well as display cells. Please do that. Displayed cells. If I keep scrolling down, I don't have a data source yet. I'm going to do that in a second. We're going to change that on Wednesday. I'm going to keep going down, scroll down, scroll down. Multi-select, let's turn that to false. So no multi-selecting. Multi-select must be turned as false. Okay, I didn't tell you to do it in the requirements, but I'm telling you to do it now. I'm trying to help you, right? Multi-select, false. Let's keep going, all right? Selection mode. Please change your selection mode, all right, to full row select. just like we've done in our examples. Full row select. So the whole row gets selected. Okay? And if you keep going down, I think that should do it. I think that's probably good enough for now. One more thing to do, and you might encounter this error later on when we connect to the data, is if you try and sort your columns the way we've done it, it might cause an error. So we may have to take that off later on. For now, let's connect this thing. So I'm going to click on this little smart arrow. And it's going to say, okay, I want to choose a data source. I want to add a project data source. On Wednesday, we're going to delete this method and we're going to use something else. But, however, keep your data grid view because the different selections we just made are still applicable. Nothing's going to change, just the way we connect. All right? So I want to go to add project data source. I'm clicking database in this case. Click next. Data set. Click next. And I'm going to create a new data set, new connection. I want to choose Microsoft SQL Server. I'm going to uncheck this and press continue. We've done this before. Don't click refresh. All right, whatever you do. I know some people have done that, waited 5 minutes. Don't do it. Here it's local DB, right? And again, MS SQL, all in caps, local DB. Although I know it's not required for caps. If you go down here to this little drop down, you should see $computers at this point. Okay? And then press OK. You don't have to test the connection. Please show the connection string in the application and click next. Click next again. And then now it's going to take you to your table. We want the products table. That's what we want. Press finish. And when you do all that, you're going to see exactly what you need to see, which is all this. Okay? Let's test it. Start. When we test it, we should see this now. And any place I click, it should highlight the entire row. Guys, this is half of the stuff that I told you to do for a select form. Okay? There's other things, but I've already given you those other things in my example for week 11, right? So, but this, if you guys can't get this connection, and if this connection is something else, it's not connecting to your database, you need to resolve this as soon as possible. Because remember, I need you to connect to $computers database, not some random database that you made on your own or you found on the internet, okay? Here's the challenge you're going to have. Remember we made our student class, right? And I'll give you a bit of a preview of what I want you guys to do later on, right? Our student class, look at all these fields. Woo, man, tons of fields. This is where it becomes unreasonable for you guys to make your own class. Because there's so many fields, right? And we want to model our data after the database, right? So here we had a very simple connection schema. And because you guys are away on Wednesday, I'm going to give it to you now and record it for people. So when we go back on Wednesday, I'll address this again. I'll do it from scratch again. But let's do it. Let's add the entity framework. And so I can show you what it helps us with. Okay? Huge for it to help you. Because guys, I don't want you to work hard. And there's tools that Microsoft has given you so you don't have to work as hard. And also we're adhering to this whole idea of model view controller. The model view controller, which is what Entity Framework supports, is a pattern, a design pattern, or a paradigm, if you will, that allows you to separate your concerns. So someone is going to be dealing with the connection to the database, the model. Another person is going to be dealing with, or a group of people are dealing with the view, right, which is how your forms look. Another person can deal with the logic behind the forms, the code behind files, right, and that's the controller. Model, view, controller, separation of concerns, right? It's just a design pattern. So the model that we want to create, the model class, which is what we already did in the week 11 examples. Week 11 we used a student class. We made it ourselves. But it makes no sense to make it yourself. I want to model my class, my model class, directly like my database. And I'm going to give you more details about that on Wednesday. But let's do it together now. So first, let's stop this thing. Yes, it was nice to make this connection. And we connected. This is our test. Let's not connect. Let's get rid of all this stuff. So on the bottom, I want you to get rid of all these connection things. Okay? Now the connection's gone. However, there's some remnants of the connection here in my app config. My app config is a file. Think about it as your application manifest. it holds information about your file. Right now, all we have is this connection string. Let's get rid of it. So on lines, between lines 6 and 8 here in my example, I have this connection string, which basically says, hey, connect to LocalDB, MS equal LocalDB. That's what it does. The catalog, which is the database, is $computers, right? And we know that the integrated security means that you're using Windows security, which is true, not SQL security, because we're not logging in or anything. If this was wrong, this would be a way. And also, my provider name is system.data.SQL client, right? Which is us connecting to a SQL server, right? However, we don't need this connection string, so we're going to delete it. Please delete this thing. And this is a file, XML file that exists after you connect. It's called app.config. If you don't do this clearing of the connection string, you will have a clash when we do Entity Framework. All right? So that's number one, step one. 2, we need the Entity Framework, which we do not have right now. By default, Microsoft Visual Studio does not include the Entity Framework as part of your project. We need to include it. Let's do this together. So I'm going to go to Solution Explorer. And I'm going to go to right-click on the project, and it's going to say something like Manage NuGet Packages. You can get here, or if you're on the solution, you can say Manage NuGet Packages for solution. It doesn't matter which one you go to. All right? I'm going to go to the project and do Manage NuGet Packages. NuGet is just a package manager, and it's going to look like this when you get there. Are you with me? Remember, I need another framework that I don't have right now, right? And it's going to help me make connections to my database. So I need to go to Browse. Under Browse, I'm going to type in the word Entity. It's already there, but I'm going to type it in like this, Entity. You should see the Entity Framework in this little purple thing that says .NET. The version that's showing right now is 6.20, all right? I'm going to click the Install button, which is latest stable 6.20, install. What this is going to do is it's going to say, hey, Visual Studio is about to make a change to the solution. Are you okay with it to proceed? I'm going to say, yes, I'm okay. And then it's going to say, the following packages require that you accept the license. I accept. Then you're going to watch this happen. It's going to say, do you want to reload if I've got stuff open? I'm going to say, yes, reload everything. And it's going to say finished. That's how easy it is. Are you with me? Entity Framework is now part of my solution, but it's in the background. You don't see it. And what you're going to see is, if I click away, in my Solution Explorer, we can kill this NuGet thing for a second. I don't need this anymore. In my Solution Explorer, I have references in here for the Entity Framework. Take a look. I don't need this open either. So in my references, this is where you're going to see the Entity Framework come in. Here. By the way, guys, Entity Framework, you're going to use again when you do COMP123. COMP123 is you're going to use the web to connect to a database with the Entity Framework and use identity for your security. We're not going to use any kind of security. We're just connecting to Entity Framework as an introduction in COMP123, but you're going to do it again in COMP123. Okay? So here we have a reference to the Entity Framework. Okay? And now what I need to do is connect to this thing using the Entity Framework. We're not going to do it yet. First, we're going to prepare. And the way we're going to prepare for the Entity Framework is we're going to create a new data folder. Let's do that. So inside of our files, we're going to make a new, add a new folder. We're going to call it data. Why? I don't have to, but it's a good practice. All right? And then I'm going to right-click on my data folder, which is empty right now. I'm going to go add, and I'm going to go new item. Under new item, please click on data. You're going to see a bunch of different options here. The one we want is the first one, ADO.NET Entity Data Model, which is at the top. Down here where it says Model 1, please change this to Products Model. Right? The Product Model. That's what it is. Why? Remember what a model is. A model is just a class that's connecting to the database, right? Entity Framework provides different ways of connecting to the database. We can create, there's different approaches. One approach is the code-based approach. I want to create my code first, I create my class first, and then I create my database from my class. So I have my class, I have my fields, and my database is going to be created for me. All of the fields in my database. Guys, that doesn't happen very often. Most of the time, we're reading a database that already exists, right? So the other approach is database first approach, right? Which is you have a database and you want to derive or create a class from the database. And that's the approach you want. So I'm going to call this product model and click add. Now it's going to ask us what kind of approach do we want to use. Do I want to use from the database? Then you could do that. I could do a designer. I can design everything in a visual scripting format where I can design my models like maybe you've seen in your database class where you kind of create your model diagram and you kind of pull over and you can create your model that way. The other way is an empty code first model, which means I make a code first and then I push it to the database. And this is the one we want to use, code first from database, the last one. Please select this one. By the way, if you don't do this properly now, I'm going to do it again on Wednesday, right? I'm going to click next. And here you have this thing that says $computers connection string in settings. Or I can make a new connection. Let's make a new connection as if $computers didn't exist, because this is how we'd really do it, right? So make a new connection, right? And if it lets me do it, yay. Same thing as before, Microsoft SQL Server connection. I'm going to continue and connect to it like we normally would do. This is the same stuff we did earlier. So local DB, right? Again, MS SQL local DB, right? I'm not going to click refresh. Don't click it. Don't be tempted. Go down here, and you should be able to see $computers again. Yes. Press OK. Now it's going to give you this new connection string. This is what you want. Okay? Now it says save connection settings in app.config as, and it says product model. No. You're going to say product model connection. Please modify this. It's important. Please do not leave the default connection string. That is just a name for the connection string, because later on, if you want to add security, we can't use this connection string anymore. Okay? Now I'm going to click next. It's going to show me my data tables as before. And I'm going to point to my products table. This is a very important step. Are you with me? How about the ladies in the middle? Are you with me? Are you following me? Alright, then you have to follow the video then. It says pluralize or singularize generated object names. Leave that checked. So that way, if my product somehow I called it products, it's going to change to product. Okay? I'm going to click finish. What this is going to do now is take a look over here. It's going to generate code for me. It's going to generate code for me. It's done generating the code for me. It's so fast. And what it's done is actually done this. If I go to my data folder now, there's two new files. There's a product model file, right? And the product model file actually is a class of its own. It creates a DB context, a context to connect to the database. This is your database connection context, right? Notice it says product model connection. This is very important. And then it also created this wonderful class called product. Guess what it has? All the fields. I don't have to connect this myself. It's a beautiful thing, guys and girls, right? I don't have to make my class. I can store my stuff in here. I can, make a new class. It's a wonderful thing, guys, right? As opposed to making your own class and try and match up the fields with the database. Notice also there's other stuff here that comes in. String length and limits how big this stuff can be, right? It's really cool. It's amazing, right, what it does. And in later versions, right, what I can do is, for example, in a model view controller scenario where we're really doing model view controller, for example, when you guys do .NET Core in COMP123, you can generate a view from this class. So I don't have to do it by hand. Here we've done it by hand. We're going to use a data grid view. But this is what it does. Notice that product is in lowercase, and that's okay, right? But one thing to note is that's what it is. If you really don't like it, and if you want to make product in uppercase, you could do that. But be careful. So if I wanted to change this, I could rename this. I could call this product, right, capital P, and press apply. That's totally doable. right? And then I could rearrange the class so that it's named that way as well. Sometimes Entity Framework does things weird, so I want to call this the product class, like this. That's totally cool. That's the only thing I would change. Just the name of the class itself. Hey, this is awesome. We've got some really cool stuff, but we're still not connected to the database. How do I connect now to the database with the model, the Entity Framework? Well, going back to my select form, I'm going to click this little start menu, start arrow, smart arrow, and now instead of choose data, I'm not going to add a new project data source. I already have one. I'm going to go to other data sources here. I'm going to go to project data sources. I'm going to choose this $computers data set. And then, right, sometimes what happens is you get something like this, right, where you're missing something, right? If this is the case, and if you get something that's missing like this, you may want to have to come back in here, right, and choose the right thing. So let's go back and let's wipe these away for a second. It's not gonna hurt anything. This is just components you're adding, right? If you get this. Sometimes what you need to do is, if you go into data sources and go into $computers, you need to choose products, the products table, which I forgot to do. Choose the products table, please. It's important. And now it does this, the exact same way we had it before. If I press play, now you should still see the data that comes from your data source. The only thing we've done to make it better for us is create this product. And it's a direct connection to our database, which means it's been created in the exact form of our database. It saves us a lot of trouble. It saves us finger typing errors, because we're going to have the exact same fields that are in the database. I don't have to do it. I don't have to do any hard work. This is your hard work for you. All right? And then, if I want to instantiate a member of that class, right, just like we did before, I recommend doing it in the program.cs file, right? We can go down in here, and we can do something like this. We can say that, first of all, we should always make the program file public. Here we are. And in here, we can say something like product, right, which is what we want to access. However, notice that I can't access the product. Why can't I access the product class? It's giving me this little smart arrow here, right? It's saying I need to using COMP123 S2019 assignment 5 data. Because this thing is inside of a data folder, I need to use a using statement to access that information, right? Does that make sense? Otherwise, you won't have access because it's inside of this data folder. It's nice. I go product, right? And we'll call it product. That's what it is, right? And we'll make it, we'll declare it. So this is our declaration. We need to make this public and static, just like before. Public, static. Here's our product. And if I go down, we can instantiate it just like we would do a form. And we're going to do the forms later, of course. But we would do something like this. Product is equal to a new product. Now we have access to a container, a data container that I didn't create, that was created for me. And this is the beautiful thing about Entity Framework, amongst other things. All right? So this is the first part of it, is the connection to the product. You can see that I have a product connection. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if all of our forms were in a view folder? Right now, our form is outside here in our regular folder, right? But wouldn't it be cool if I had my forms in a views folder, right? I could do that. Now, be careful, please. You need to close off your form in order for you to do this. So my design, I need to close down, and I might as well close this stuff down too. Close everything down, right? So that way there's something that looks like this. Again, my data folder, I could call this models, right? If I really want to, because that's what it is. However, let's leave it as data. And I can right click here and make a new folder, just organization wise, make a new folder called views. In my views folder, or you can make it forms, I can drag and drop this select form in here, right? Now it says one or more files we moved in there. Are you okay? This operation might take a long time. Are you okay? Well, there's only a few files. I don't suspect it's going to take long. However, guys, we just moved my form, my select form in there. And if I want to organize all my forms inside this structure, which is totally fine. You need to organize your program.cs so that it points to the right place. So let's go back to my program.cs form. Notice that it only has data, but it doesn't have my form. Let's make my form. So I'll say public and static. I'm going to make a brand new form, which is going to be of type select form. Select form doesn't compute, right? Because select form isn't part of my thing, and yet it is. Why is that? Because using COMP123 data is there, forms are there, but if you really want to be explicit, and I recommend you are, use that using statement as well. Do a using statement, COMP123 assignment 5 and then you want to put views. That's totally fine. But here's the problem with this. Well, if you look at my select form now, my select form, the reason why it works is because it's part of the same namespace. Whereas in my data form, in my product.cs, you can see that my namespace is .data. So to be right about this, which is going to happen, you want to change your select form, which is this part right here, view code. You want to change this to .views. That's the namespace you want to use. And the same thing goes with my backend designer. All right, my backend designer should also be the .views. Right? Does that make sense? So now that I've done that, if I go back to my program.cs, I've included views, and now I can go my select form. I've created my select form, which is going to be called select form. Sorry guys, one more sec. I'll let you guys go. And in here, I would instantiate my select form. So I would say something like select form, just like we've done before, is equal to a new select form. And I would call this select form in here, because that's the one we're starting with right now. In the final version, you won't be starting with select form, you'll be starting with start form. But this is a great way of testing out your hierarchy and creating a more formatted solution, because this is more control. Now if I add a new form, I can go to views and I can go to add a new form, and it'll be in that view, in the views folder, right? So if I do this and I run it, let's test it to make sure it's okay. Here's my views, my form. It's inside a views folder. It's connecting to my database. This is all good, and I'm pretty happy at this point. So guys, that's kind of an intro into the entity framework and how to connect my form to my database, how to convert my database, my SQL file that I gave you, and I convert it so it's used. We use SQL Server Management Studio to do that, all right? So this video is probably one of the most important ones because it sets you up nicely for assignment 5, okay? Any questions around this one? I will continue with this thing on Wednesday. I won't see you on Wednesday. I will post that the thing has been canceled, but please let your peeps, all your friends know. No class Wednesday morning at 8:30, okay, or 10:30. It's not going to happen. All right. Thank you, and we'll see you guys next week. Remember, also no class on Monday. Right? That'd be bad if you showed up on a civic holiday for some reason.